let's just say we've not had an eventful day recently, have we? It's been pretty lackluster, pretty uneventful recently. Not much to talk about, am I right?
No, I can't think of anything. Literally, it's just been a snooze fest in the world of football. Nothing's happened.
Nothing.
No.
Because of course, I bet you probably didn't realize this, Taryn, but I was doing a bit. I was being coy. You probably didn't realize this, but it's actually been very eventful in this last couple of days because Eric Ten Hag has been sacked as Manchester United manager earlier today. The Athletic broke the story at like midday-ish, and what do you make of that? That is crazy. I mean, this is something which I feel like everybody saw coming for a while now, and it shouldn't be too much of a shock to anyone. But what do you make of this?
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who's actually surprised by this result. It was just, I mean, we've talked about it in length actually on this podcast before. I think it might have been the last one or the one before that, where we were just literally for about 10, 15 minutes talked about the situation with Man United. And this was literally going to happen. It was, we spoke about the FA Cup win that they had against Man City, that it was just literally putting a plaster over the gaping wound that is Manchester United right now. And whatever the plan was that he had, it hasn't worked. I mean, Man United are 14th in the league right now. And the thing is, though, when I was looking through some stuff, that the transfers that Ten Hag has made, he's not made cheap transfers. They're, if you look at it from a purely business perspective, there has been very little return on what he's invested, or the investment into him. It's just not worked out, and it's all the best for him, but it was coming.
It's always hard to see somebody lose their job, but yeah, this has been coming for a while now. I feel like the review they undertook in the summer, where they basically undermined his position at that point. I feel like that's the point where you have to cut ties, because let's be honest, going into this season, he was pretty much on thin ice from the very get-go, and yet they still invested more than 200 million in players that he wanted. Although, I say 70 million of that was Lenny Euros, so maybe that's not really a him player, it's more of a future player. But still, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money overall, and I think it's just, in my opinion, terrible club management by Ineos and the people who own Manchester United, because at the end of the day, they've left somebody in charge who they knew wasn't going to cut it last season, and it's one of those situations where I have to imagine, just because of the complete lack of options they had in the summer, that's why they didn't make the change back then. But I don't know, man. I barely see that many more options now, if you know what I mean. Although there have been breaking reports in the last few hours that Manchester United are going after Ruben Amorim, the Sporting Lisbon manager, who apparently has a £10 million release clause in his contract with Sporting Lisbon. So that's something very different. And he was somebody who's been earmarked by Manchester City as being the successor to Pep. So it could very well end up being a shrewd piece of business. But yeah, man, it is typical sort of Manchester United of this last decade, post-Ferguson, where it's like these managers, they come in with a lot of hype, and all of a sudden it's a belief like it's going to be a new era, and then it starts off pretty well a lot of the time, and then peters off, and then becomes disastrous, and then they're gone. So I hope for their sake that they figure out what's right next. I really hope that maybe the next person will actually have some level of consistency. Again, we talked about it at length last time, a couple of episodes ago, is the key here is consistency. If you are consistently losing to teams like Bournemouth and Fulham at home, those are the results that are going to get you sacked. And quite frankly, I was shocked that he didn't get sacked, losing 3-0 to Spurs and then 3-0 to Liverpool. That's usually the kind of run that would get a Manchester United manager booted. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a certain expectation when you go to a specific club.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when Steve Cooper came to Leicester City, the expectation is just to stay up.
Yes.
That's the expectation. The expectation when you go to a big club like Man United is you need to, number one, compete for trophies. Number two, get into Europe, and number three, potentially compete for the league.
Yeah.
That is what you need to do. And they've won a couple of trophies under Ten Hag. Like they won the FA Cup and they won the Carabao Cup. And they won that. But other than that, they've never really seemed like a threat. They never, the status quo at the moment is Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Villa are now breaking into that top four, but they're not going to compete for the league anytime soon. But that is the status quo as it is. And Man United in the past were the status quo, but they've never. I mean, they've got into the Europa League, last season, and they're doing the Europa League now. And the performance against Fenerbahce, oh god, that was uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
And it's just every single time. I mean, as a non-Man United fan, we're quite neutral looking at this. So we're like, okay, well, so we think of like Man United as a big club, so what it is that we expect from Manchester United. If you're a Man United fan, this has probably been an absolute,
misery.
Nightmare. Yeah, misery to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not been easy viewing. Man United in the bottom half of the Premier League, 14th, literally just 2 points above Leicester.
Yeah.
That's it. And Leicester is a team that's just fighting for survival this season. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
And if I look at it from I don't mind Man United doing badly, I would like Ten Hag to stay. But really, we need more competition in the league. And Man United they're not a threat anymore. They're just, they're not even mid-table at the moment. So I don't know. It was about time it's time for this to happen. If I go back to my actual point I was making, which was the expectations of a certain club, and he never met them. And he's had 2.5 years to meet those expectations, or even come close to those expectations. And it would have been okay if we saw what the plan was. But we've said it before. We never knew what the plan was with Ten Hag. Like, what is his game? What is he developing? With Arteta, Arsenal weren't competing straight away, but we knew there was something he was working towards. Whereas with Klopp as well, Klopp didn't win much with Liverpool at first, but we knew there was something he was building towards. Ten Hag, okay, first season, fair enough, you get your first season jitters, but it's been there for 2.5 years now. Well, come on, we should have seen something, but it just hasn't happened.
No, it just hasn't happened. And again, I think the key word has been misery. Because, when you look at the style of play, when you look at the performances, they just haven't been very good. And he's always sort of emphasized that he wants the team to be the best transitional team in the world. But the problem was that he just doesn't have, one, the players for it, and two, he doesn't have the identity for it. So he was talking about... when talking about transition, you need people who are able to pass the ball out from the back really, really accurately. And you saw it the other day against West Ham for, I think it was the first goal, where it's their own fault for giving away the goal, because I think Garnacho passes it straight to the defender. So that kind of stuff, you need to realize the weaknesses which are within your team, to then go, okay, well, clearly we're not going to be able to play this style of football. Let's stop focusing so much on playing from the back and play it, just switch things up a little bit, play more to our strengths. And when a manager can't do that, which I feel like Ten Hag has been incapable of doing for all of last season and also the start of this season, then it's time to go. This reminds me so much of some of the issues that I feel with Leicester a lot of the time, where it's guys, we need to think of a plan B because the way you're playing isn't working. We'll get to that later. But
we'll get to that bit. But it's
we'll get to
that Ten Hag's last game in charge of Man United against West Ham.
Yeah.
I mean, really, Man United in that first half played some of the best football they have all season.
Yeah, and that's the problem, though. That's the problem. I think the fact that they're playing that well and they can't capitalise It's a mentality issue, but it's a discipline issue, and they do that so regularly. Like you've seen me a number of times when I've come back onto this podcast and we've done the roundups, and I'm like, oh, but United actually played really well, but then they lost it in the second half. Oh, you know what? The Brighton game's a good example of that. I spoke at length. I'm like, they actually played well, but they fucked it, and I think that's what it is they're consistent bottlers in games right now under Ten Hag.
Yeah. And it makes painful watching, especially if you're a Man United fan.
Yeah.
If you're looking in, you just kind of watching and go, oh, Man United are a bit shit. But that first half against West Ham, Man United could have been 3-4-0 up. You know, the amount of chances they had.
And Dalot's open goal miss, I can't.
Oh, that. You know what? That kind of epitomises Man United's season so far.
Yeah.
That literally, you did all the hard work, you've got an open goal, and then he just fluffs it.
Blasts it.
You know, that epitomises Man United at the moment.
That chance is basically the recurring anxiety dream that I have sometimes, where I'm through one goal and I miss the ball completely. Like I miss it. I have that as like an anxiety dream because it's like that realistically wouldn't happen, and it fucking happened to a pro footballer. So it's just ridiculous. It's honestly you can't even. What's Ten Hag even meant to do in that situation? But again,
you can't train for that.
No,
you can't. But then Man United did get unlucky because that wasn't a penalty.
That was never a penalty. Oh my god,
it was not a penalty. There was no way. As funny as it is to see Man United lose, that was never a penalty.
No,
again, when West Ham went ahead, it was just sloppy defending by United. But then Casemiro managed to get them an equaliser. But again, that penalty basically ended the Ten Hag era.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that, but what would have happened if Man United beat West Ham? Well, then they would have just waited. They would have just waited until he lost.
It would have been a stay of execution, I believe, because he kind of had the death knell set after the Spurs game, after the Liverpool game. That Liverpool game, right? So the thing is, right, when you're brought in as Manchester United manager, those are the games you're literally hired to win. The ones against Liverpool and the ones against Spurs, the teams who are supposed to be around you and your biggest rivals, or your biggest enemies, and especially at home. I can't believe they played that badly in those two games at Old Trafford, because it's like when you're a home fan and you're watching your team play disgusting football and they look like they're just second in every department and they don't have any fight to them. I don't think I can put into words how bad that must feel. But then we felt it on Friday night. But again, we'll get to that eventually. But
we're building up to it.
We're building up to it. But yeah, I can't believe it didn't happen sooner. To be honest with you,
I personally thought. I actually thought they were going to wait till Christmas. A part of me thought they were going to wait till Christmas and then sack him. But it's just they can't wait that long. Really, they should have made these moves before the season started.
Yeah,
they should have made these moves and said like, all right, well, thanks for winning us the FA Cup, but we're going to move in a different direction now. They did it with Van Gaal. Well, it wasn't them. It was the Glazers in charge back then. But Man United have done that before. Like, it wasn't Glazers. Who was in charge of Man United back in the day? Was it? No, it wasn't Glazers. That's it.
Was Glazers,
they got rid of Van Gaal back in the day, and he won a trophy with Man United.
It's because Mourinho was available, though. That's the key difference, is because you have somebody of Mourinho's caliber who was waiting in the wings, and that was like, okay, we have to make a decision. Whereas that isn't the case.
This is the problem. This is the problem Man United are in now. I know they wanted Thomas Tuchel. I know they wanted him, but he's gone to England now. The Tooch has gone to England.
We have the Tooch.
We have the Tooch. But the thing is, he's gone to England. So they missed it. Again, that shows the ineptitude.
Ineptitude.
That shows the shittiness of Man United right now. I don't think it'll come a word. But that shows...
Did you mean ineptitude?
That's it. That's the word. Remember, I'm the looks, you're the brains.
Okay, cool.
But that shows what Man United are in right now. There was an opportunity to get Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah.
But England needed a new manager, and And let's face it, a lot of people would rather play for Man United. Manage Man United than manage England.
Especially if you're not English, like
especially if you're not English.
Yeah, especially if you're not English. Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
But Man United couldn't move on it quick enough,
no.
And then the FA came and took Thomas Tuchel, and so now their key option is gone.
Yeah. So funny you bring that up, because what I was doing just there, I wasn't texting. I was going on to our favourite odds checking site, oddschecker.com.
Of course, the great site itself.
Yeah, which we took a look at back when we were discussing the potential England manager. Literally, like the day,
they were right though.
The day before the Tuch was hired. So let's do the same thing, but with Manchester United. So at the very top is the man I mentioned earlier. 1 to 3 odds on Ruben Amorim.
That means they're more or less in talks with him.
Right.
If it's going to be 1 to 3 odds, then that means they're more or less in talks with him.
Okay. I don't understand betting odds, so I'm glad you can kind of. I know that if the little number is at the. If the little number is at the end. Yeah, if the little number is at the end, that means it's a good odd. But I don't know. 1 to 3.
A 1 to 3, you would never put a bet on that.
Okay.
Because you probably lose money on that, even if you won. Yeah, but 1 to 3 means they are more or less in talks with him.
Right. So there's no chance on it, basically. That's interesting. Yeah. That's very interesting. So again, 10 million release clause from Sporting Lisbon.
I know you can pay that
very easily. I mean, they're having to pay, like, according to Sky Sports, about 13.5 million in compensation to Ten Hag. So they have the money. Poor guy. I know, right? It must be so difficult. What I will say, though, is Amorim is an interesting choice. So he's won, I think it's 3 Portuguese leagues now, but he's been winning it with a Sporting Lisbon team who historically have not been any of the the dominant force in Portugal, right? So normally the Portuguese league, you got Porto and Benfica who either win, and he's managed to do it with like their equivalent of Atletico Madrid, if you know what I mean.
I think there's this little bit of a the way people look at the Portuguese league is a bit like I assume that the Spanish probably look at the Portuguese league a bit like how the English look at the Scottish league. Even though the Portuguese league is levels higher than the Scottish Premier League.
Yeah.
But it, you know what? He's won trophies in his own league. You know, he's done it with a team that shouldn't really be doing it. So. Yeah, maybe he's the right. Maybe he's that breath of fresh air. Maybe because the easy thing would be like, oh, let's go for a manager who's been in the Premier League. Let's go for a manager who's been in La Liga. Let's go for one of them. But Ten Hag hadn't. He was in the Dutch league. But it's maybe a Portuguese league person needs to be the guy to do it for Man United.
Do you know what? This is going to make you feel really old. Amorim is 39. Like, this guy's like.
He's only a few years older than me.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's going to be manager. He might be manager of Manchester United tomorrow. Like, how crazy is that?
What am I doing?
What have you done with your life? I know.
I've done nothing. I've literally done nothing with my life now.
But Ruben Amorim, I actually remember him as a player, and he wasn't like a remarkable player. You know,
I vaguely remember him.
I remember because he used to be one of those players in like FIFA and Pro Evolution where like they would always write the full name out. It'd always be like Ruben Amorim rather than just Amorim. But he only got 14 caps for Portugal. He wasn't a remarkable player, but like a pretty dependable player for Benfica for about 10 years. But yeah, he looked odds on, and I'm interested to see what he can do if he gets the job. He's also credited with building the careers of a lot of decent young players who then went on to much greater things. So like Nuno Mendes at PSG, Ugarte himself, who's now at Manchester United, João Palhinha, who was at Fulham and now is at Bayern Munich. There's quite a lot of players who played under him who have really like excelled in their careers. He's quite known for bringing through youth, Diamande, Inacio, people like that. So I'm interested to see what he can do and who he'll bring in. And again, you know, there's a new era, new excitement. I'm of the camp that I think like England needs Manchester United to be successful.
At the end of the day, they are still the biggest club in England.
In England
at the moment.
And
it's just, as much as the success of Man City is there, Man United are still the biggest club, like commercially, globally. Man United is still well known. So as much as we hate to say it, Man United, they do need to be doing well.
They need to be doing well, and also I think for the sake of the Premier League, we need more teams competing. And I think you touched on this earlier. We can't just have Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal. We need a top 5 basically, and keep it as competitive as possible. Because the more sort of banter clubs you end up having, the more Man City will just dominate, and teams will regularly get over like the 90-point threshold, and it's not a good indicator of our league's quality when that happens. It makes us the Farmers League.
Well, that's why people kind of discredit the Scottish Premier League all the time. Is Celtic or Rangers win it, and they win it by monstrous amounts, and it's just it's the other one of them. And okay, if you like the Scottish Premier League, you only really be Scottish, and then you kind of you find it exciting. But others looking in, they don't find it overly exciting. That's what many people felt about the French league, Ligue 1. They nobody really found it exciting because PSG was dominating for so long.
I mean, you can argue that about pretty much most of the European leagues. At one point or another, have been dominated by one club. England has been quite special in that very rarely have we had like a real era of dominance by one team. The most obviously, Man City have won 4 in a row, but before that, no one had ever done 4 in a row. And whereas, like in Italy, Juventus won for like 10 years straight. Bayern Munich have won for 10 years straight. PSG have won for fucking 10 years straight. Do you know what I mean? Like, rarely see Real Madrid or Barcelona in Spain and Atletico sometimes. But what I'm trying to say is, we've never had that. We've never had like just one team just steamrolls everybody. United, obviously, were the closest thing we've ever had to it in like before the Man City era, where they would win like 2 in a row, 3 in a row, 2 in a row, 2 in a row, but it would never be like no contest. Everybody else just fucking falls to the ground in the wake of this one team, which is what's happening with Man City, and that's why I think we need more competition in the Premier League.
It makes it more exciting, more exciting, that's why everyone still goes on about the season that Leicester won it, because it made it exciting. It's like, another team just came out of nowhere and won the league.
It's bad.
And then the season after that, Chelsea won it. It wasn't going back to the normal kind of thing. It's just we want to see that, and let's face it, like we don't like having one team dominate.
No, it's bad for the neutral. It's really bad for the neutral because like. We're good examples of this, right? We're Leicester fans, so the title race will always more or less be a neutral situation for us. So as a result, seeing Man City win it year after year has been boring as fuck for me, right? I want to see a bit more excitement, and obviously there have been close runs, but again, I just feel like one of these other teams just needs to get over the goddamn fucking line. And Arsenal nearly did it, and Liverpool nearly did it, but I can't deal with another Man City win purely from like England's what do you call it? It's just a reputation standpoint, I think.
I mean, Liverpool did it a few seasons ago, but it's like Arsenal. We were banking on them doing it last season, but it's just they bottled it at the end. But it's again now we're starting to see the league take shape again. With Man City now on top.
Same old. It's literally same old.
Arsenal, so frustrating. You're starting to see there's a little bit of a point gap between Man City and Arsenal and Liverpool, but then that's going to start getting gradually bigger, and then the league goes back to normal again. And it's just like
bullshit. Moving on to number 2 in the list, we have Ruud van Nistelrooy at 10-1. So Van Nistelrooy, obviously, to those who don't know, what you probably already know, he's the assistant manager of Ten Hag, and he is now the interim manager of Manchester United. Obviously, former club legend, scored more than 150 goals for them in the Premier League. Huge presence. I mean, I think Van Nistelrooy makes a lot of sense, especially as an interim. I don't think he makes sense as a permanent manager in terms of he's a good sort of set of hands to give the reins to for a while until they sort their shit out. But I think he makes a lot of sense. Yeah. What do you make of that?
I mean, yeah, it does make sense. He's just there to just basically man the ship until the next guy comes in. That's all that Van Nistelrooy is there for. And so if he doesn't, then his first game in charge is actually going to be against Leicester in the Carabao Cup. But so we'll really test him there. But it's yeah, I mean, he's just there to do that. So I think even if he doesn't have the best results, you can't really hold it against him. He's just there to be interim manager until the next guy comes in. If they gave him the permanent job, then you can scrutinise him a bit more.
Yeah.
But I still remember when Ruud van Nistelrooy scored a hat trick at the KP when all those years ago. But it's yeah. I mean, Van Nistelrooy, he's just like there's. I mean, I don't think many people will be overly excited, but I don't think many people will be overly disappointed. He's just there to just look after the place until he's a caretaker, really.
I think Manchester United fans would be pretty excited just purely because it's him. It's kind of like
nostalgia.
It's the nostalgia, but it's like the same thing that happened with like Ollie. It's like because it's a club legend, it's somebody that they already love. To see it go in the hands of somebody that they already have a real deep affinity towards, it means something.
But that could be dangerous as well, though.
Yeah, again, because then you give them too much leeway, like what happened with Ollie towards sort of midpoint of his career with United. Next on the list, which I found, so they were talking about this quite a bit the other day, and I found it very surprising, is Xavi. So Xavi is 14 to 1.
I saw that.
Yeah, 14 to 1. So not the best odds, but not exactly like high odds. That's still relatively low, isn't it? That's fair choice on odds checker.
Yeah.
So, I don't know about this.
I don't think Xavi would want to do it.
Yeah,
I don't know whether Xavi would want it, to be fair.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense either, because Xavi, like, it just doesn't quite check out. It feel like they're trying to, like, recapture a sort of potential Pep-esque kind of situation, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think Xavi made a lot of sense sort of going to Barcelona in their financial troubles and steadying the ship, and he won the league with them, and that was obviously a great achievement considering the stipulations he had to deal with. But I just don't think it makes sense at a team like United, where one, they don't play the possession style of football, and two, he's done it at Barcelona, and things got too hectic and he had to leave. I just think United are pretty much just as hectic at the moment. So it's like, why would you go from one hectic club to another hectic club? Surely you'd want a few years at somewhere where you could really develop your coaching style, develop your list of silverware, So, I don't know. I don't see it happening. But I just doesn't make sense to me.
He's at Barcelona now, and he's more of a La Liga person anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think he really want to come to the Premier League. It's nice to put him on the list, but I don't think Xavi really want to do it.
Well, you're going to love this next choice, because the next choice at 18 to 1 and fourth on the list is Gareth Southgate. or as we described him earlier, the English Ruben Amorim.
Yeah, safe hands Southgate, eh?
Safe hands.
If he, he's out of a job at the moment. He's probably not doing anything.
Yeah.
But the problem with Southgate is, I mean, he did. You know what? We praised him quite a bit. Like, we gave him. Well, we didn't praise him. We just gave him his due.
I praised him. I still think he did a great job with England.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah, couldn't get over
he did do. He took England, which was a shit show, and turned it into a team which is actually quite respectable now.
Yeah.
And now we've gone on to a manager who will hopefully help us win stuff. But Gareth put those little foundations in there to help us get there. But if we remember Gareth Southgate's club management career, it's nothing to shout about.
No, I think he finished like 10th and 11th in 2 seasons, and then the third season he got relegated with Middlesbrough and then got sacked in the Championship. So he hasn't had the most glamorous club career. There's a reason why he went into international development and then went to the under-21s, and that's kind of where he honed his skill. So to be honest with you, right, I would argue that he was a club manager so very long ago. His record is not the most relevant anymore because it was actually in the late 2000s. It wasn't even in
anything now.
He took over from Steve McLaren, who left in 2006 to manage England. So isn't that crazy? That's how long ago Gareth Southgate was manager of Middlesbrough.
well, maybe we shouldn't have these Middlesbrough managers coming to manage England. But
that's a good argument. Like I wouldn't disagree with that. But I just don't think his club record is as relevant anymore. But I will say it just doesn't. This appointment wouldn't make a lot of sense to me.
I think Man United are in the same position as England.
Yeah.
In a sense that they need someone who can just. Man United need someone who can basically get them back up there.
Yeah.
And they're not in a position where we need a guy to come in and start building. They're literally in a dire situation this season.
Yeah.
So they need. Southgate is not a good appointment. Again, as a neutral looking in, it'll be fucking hilarious. But I think from a business point of view, Southgate would not be the right choice.
Yeah. Next on the list, and to be honest, this was my favourite earlier. I thought this one made a lot of sense, but he's even lower than Southgate on the rankings, so maybe not. But at 22-1 is Brentford's Thomas Frank, who I think is a really good manager. And
he's a good manager.
Yeah, and has a great style of play. He's really built Brentford into what they are today, which is like a very solid Premier League team. I honestly think he's ready for like the next level job. And if it's not United, maybe it'll be like, eventually the next Spurs manager or something like that. I think he makes a lot of sense to me as like lined up for one of those next jobs.
I don't think Thomas Frank's a bad shout.
I think it's a very good shout.
Well at Man United.
Yeah, I think it's a good shout.
Yeah, like you were just saying about with Brentford, he's actually turned Brentford into a respectable Premier League side.
Yep.
And that's Brentford.
That's perfect.
So imagine what he could do with the players that Man United have.
Yeah.
But so that'd be an interesting one. But then some people said that about Ten Hag. But I think Thomas Frank would be an interesting one actually. They won't give it to him.
Yeah,
but if he did the same.
Frank's interesting though because he's a system manager in the sense that he knows what it's like to operate under a club model where there is somebody who does the signings for you. There's somebody who where he's a coach first and foremost, and everything else is left to each department has its own specialist, and I think that's what United are transitioning into. Whereas he's been under that model at Brentford for a very long time now, so it'd make a lot of sense. Next on the list at 28-1 is our very own Graham Potter, who is it says a lot when you're linked to the Leicester job and then immediately linked to the fucking Man United job. There's a very little consistency to these odd choices. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, really out on the journey, hasn't he? He was linked to Leicester, didn't go to Leicester.
Linked to England, didn't go to England.
Didn't get England.
No, Man United.
Now he's linked to Man United, and he probably won't get Man United.
Nope.
So I mean, yeah. I don't think. I think we're always harsh on English managers, and then we moan why we can't have one manage England. But it's I don't think
doesn't see it happening.
It doesn't suit.
No,
it just doesn't work.
Let's just rattle through all the rest of these because we're basically going to say the exact same commentary for what we've just said for these guys. Nagelsmann again just went to Germany. He's not going to leave anytime soon. Eddie Howe, I can see that happening purely because of the Newcastle issues and his connection to Dan Ashworth, but at the same time, probably not. Kieran McKenna, Stefano Pioli, the ex-AC Milan manager, Garcia Pimenta, Xabi Alonso, Unai Emery, Diego Simeone, Ross Martin. It goes on and on and on and on. Let's look out for some weird ones. At 100-1 is Gary Neville. And underneath him is 100-1 is Tom Cleverley. And then get this, 100-1 as well, underneath Tom Cleverley is Gary O'Neill, who's an actual manager. So that doesn't make any sense. Gary O'Neill, who's a manager of a Premier League team, done a pretty decent job with Wolves, is for some reason lower on the odds than Tom Cleverley and Gary Neville, who have...
Gary Neville's he's a pundit now. What's he doing?
SMS is at 100-1 as well. Again, makes no sense. Wayne Rooney at 125-1. Roy Keane at 175-1. God,
I think these are just filling up the blank spaces now. I don't think these are serious.
Steven Gerrard at 300-1. That's a fun one. Tuchel at 300-1. The Tooch. Let's see.
They still want him, do they? You know what though? If Steven Gerrard went on to manage Man United, could you imagine the reaction to that?
That'd be
Jesus
amazing.
Christ.
That'd be so funny. Yeah, I remember Gerrard talking, telling a story about like Gary Neville trying to tap him up at the England camp. And he goes, "If I went to Manchester United, my family wouldn't be safe."
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That if Steven Gerrard went on to manage Man United, oh my God.
That's so funny.
He would never be allowed back in Liverpool again, and he's a Liverpool legend.
Exactly.
But I think Ruben Amorim's going to wait for one.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes the most amount of sense. I guess, enough about Manchester United. Should we talk about the elephant in the room?
Well, before we do that, where does Ten Hag go?
Oh, that's a good question.
Where does he go now?
Who's the manager? Who's the manager of Holland?
I don't know.
Maybe he'll go be Holland manager. I know Bayern Munich were into him when they were looking for a manager, but they went with a company. But nothing to say company can't get sacked. Let me see, who is the manager of Holland? Because it could, that's probably a job. Holland tend to have a roundabout of managers, right?
Yeah, they just kind of work through them, don't they?
Yeah, and they go through the same ones over and over again too. Holland manager. The Holland manager is Ronald Koeman still. So yeah, I mean Koeman probably see how long he lasts. He could be the Dutch manager, Ten Hag. He might go to I don't fucking know who needs a manager anytime soon.
He could come to Leicester.
We got Coops. We don't need.
We got the Coops. Oh, we're okay with the Coops.